Okay, so this video is about using a Lora to make a consistent illustrated character, consistent face, which is quite difficult because if you use a Lora made from photographic references, i.e., like the many Loras available for celebrities or whatever, then it tends to impose the photographic style on your image. So you end up with an illustrated background and a photographic person, or the other way around. Sometimes it does it in the reverse. So what I'm going to do is go through very quickly how to make the initial person Laura, and then how to make the required illustration style Laura that you can use to get a completely consistent image that is illustration all over and not half photograph, half illustration. So, first of all, we make the Laura. Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm going to run quickly through how you make a Laura for a face anyway. So we're using the wonderful Diana Rigg, who was Mrs. Peel in the 1960s Avenger series, and I've culled these images from the interweb. I'll just flick through them. I have cropped into them, but and you sometimes a screen cap is better than the raw image because of the magic of the display system. So these are not cropped, and they're probably not good enough to make a normal person Laura because the pictures are old and grainy and such. But for our purposes, they're fine because we just want to add character and a bit of her sort of zest and she has a great face, so we'll catch a bit of that in our final Laura. So this is a Laura to make a Laura. So it doesn't have any use. We're not trying to make a likeness of Diana Rigg. We're just using her face as an ingredient in the mix. So that's the raw files, and these are the files where I've cropped. And there's a few things you want to consider. One, as you see, these are 102 images. They're not great, but they're going in at 512, so they'll probably be okay. And there's a few things you want. You don't want two images with her dead center. You want to move her off left and right in that. And you need, we go back to previous one, you need profiles. You need different angles. Simple as that. Looking up. And different expressions. If in every photo she's got a big grin on her face, that's all you'll get when you use the Laura. So we need a variety of expressions, a variety of angles. There's probably quite not enough expressions here because she's pretty deadpan, but it'll be fine for what we want. I think there's enough variety there. So what I'll do now, we go off and I'll make that Laura, and we'll train that Laura, and then I'll show you how to use it in Flux to make another set of images to train the final Laura. Okay, so here we are in Comfy. Our Laura is cooked, and here's our first gen. So as you see, pretty good. Looks like her. It's a photo. So what I'll do is just show you the problem you get when you want to use a photo to influence the face in a comic strip drawing or any other sort of painting or any hand-drawn illustrated style. So what we'll do first, we'll change the prompt. See, this prompt is just a straight image, so it'll do a photo. This one, I'm asking for a comic strip drawing. So swap that over to that prompt and just see what change we get. I'll run that. So this is what we get. And it's a nice enough image, but well, the trees photographs, she's actually more drawn than you might expect. She's developed a black outline with photographic interior, if you look closely. The face isn't too bad, but everything in it is sort of a strange halfway house. So what we might do to get around that is to add a comic strip Laura. So we'll add a comic strip Laura, put it in at 75 would be quite strong. And we'll run that and see what that does. And so you see, even with the Laura, we've got the same problem. The sort of toning and everything is photographic inside. It has improved, but our trees are still photographic trees. There's a photographic roof in there, and a sort of airbrush. It's a hodgepodge of different styles. We haven't got any continuity. So I'll show you that without the person Laura. This is just sort of outlining the problem. And what we want is something that where the style of the face and the person, etc., is all nice and consistent. Okay, so here we have with just the Laura. As you see, it's gone quite comic strippy drawing. We've got a different face, obviously, and it's gone pretty drawn. I would probably, if I was actually making one, I'd add another Laura, which is this is ink punk. So this will be two comic strip Lauras going at the same time, which will give us a yet more drawn image. And this might be a painted image or a watercolor image. It doesn't really matter about the style, but what we're talking about is not a photograph, an illustration. So as you see, that's even more drawn. So what happens if we put the character Laura into this? So we need to reduce that a little bit, or maybe. No, my luck, this will do another perfect comic strip. Because it will occasionally. The problem is that it won't do very often. And there we go. We're back to the photographic bricks, photographic windows, photographic trees, etc. So we need to get around that. So what I'll go through now is the process by which you make a Laura of her face that already has some comic stripness about it. It won't be perfect comic stripness, but it'll be one step towards the way, and it'll resist this photographing, turning it into a photograph. Okay, so what we want to do, I'll start with the changes made here. What I've done here is load in, if we look at this, one of the original training images into Redux. There you go, we've got all these training images, and I've loaded one of them into Redux. We'll load another one in, just a different one. But what I'll do, you'll see in a moment. I'll work my way through that. Okay, so she's working there, and the style strength is set quite low, 0.24. So this is sort of supplying our brief, and the prompt has been simplified. So I want to only have a brief mention of what's behind her and a bit of something to give it light. And then I've gone in quite hard on the description of the style. And what I do, and I put her in, and now she's in at much reduced levels. She's only at 0.4. But we have a likeness here as well. So hopefully it will produce... I've just tested it here as well before I started recording, and it seems to work pretty well. With some of the images it won't work so well, but we'll run this again, and I do it in batches. This is a batch of 4, and you'll see why in a second. So here we go, and as you see, it's pretty much all the same person. That's very like Emma Peel there, and I cherry pick at this point. So this is quite good, this is quite good, and what I'll do is I'll save off these into the ones I like. I think a good likeness into the file, and I'll probably do maybe 100. I might do batches of 9 even, and I'll get 2 or 3 out of each one that have a nice likeness. So I'm cherry picking basically. You can up the I'll take this down so we don't do 4 every time. You can up the strength. At a certain point, it'll flip into doing photographic stuff. So you can find that point, or if it's gone photographic, you can row back a little bit on the initial Laura, or you can play with the style strength here. They're the variables that control it, and it might be a little bit different for each one. So here I've upped the Laura, and we'll run that, and we'll get this image here again. And there we go. That's quite a lot more like her. I don't like the red hair, but so what we'll perhaps do is put dark brown hair, and we'll run that, see if that helps. So you want to get this prompt pretty much tuned. You don't want to say too much or too little. Well, that should take the red out of the hair. Not as much as I wanted, but there you go. Possibly because we got quite a lot of red in the hair there. But anyway, we'll do another image, and we'll change the background. So you need this is in a garden, this one, which is fine. And we're not having much background, but it's actually quite important, the background. So we'll choose another file. Go on there. And we'll change where she is from the garden to a living room. And you want very little description of the... but we do need variety. So we'll run that, see how that goes. If I did a batch of 4 or 5 on here, there would be, plenty without the reddish hair. There we go. So that's a very nice one. Very like her. We'll just have a look at the... So that's pretty good. It won't copy... This isn't strong enough to make a duplicate of this. So what we want is a training image. And this works out rather well because that's a perfect training image. Very nice. Looks like her. It's drawn throughout, pretty much on style. So we'll do another one. Another one on just another seed. As I said, I'll do batches of 9 and cherry pick maybe 4 out of each batch until I got maybe 100, and then I'll cherry pick them again to make the final training set for the person, Laura. And again, it's done a nice likeness of her, not quite as drawn as I would like. However, it is drawn enough that when we make a Laura from this, it can produce very drawn images rather than coloured ones. So that's all fine. We're getting a good image, more or less every seed. And so, you see, how it works is, from this one training image, we'll do another training image. From this one training image, I can get quite a few new training images. So let's take another one. And we could change her expression. So you can change her expression. We go slight smile. So you can change that to sad. Essentially, you're ringing the changes. And I think we're still in the living room. But we could change that location, and we need a variety of backgrounds so that our figure, in the final Laura, we can put them in all different situations. And I'm doing these 1024 because that allows me the choice to. That's a very nice. I like that one. So that allows me the choice to crop into these if I want to change the composition as such. Another one of those. Anyway, it's being nice now, and the hair's lost its bright redness. You can always Photoshop the red out. That's no trouble really. So if you get a really good image and the only thing wrong is the hair, then that's easy fix. What we're looking at is a nice consistent person, which is looking very good. She's coming out the same person pretty much every time. There you go. That's pretty good as well. So this Laura's actually worked better than some of them do, but sometimes you won't get as good a consistency as this. But if you make enough images in this, just churn them out, you can usually assemble a pretty good set of, say, 32 images that you can train the final Laura on. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to stop this video. Because you don't want to watch me doing 100 gens, and so what we'll do, we'll come back and do another section when the images are generated, and probably when the images are generated, and I've trained the next Laura. So basically see the results. But essentially what we're going to end up with here is a set of probably 32 images where the likeness is nice and consistent, the background is varied, what she's wearing is varied, and we'll come on to that later because you might, as a next stage, want to, if she's a character and you want to have consistent clothing, then you use the Laura resulting from this. There is a way of making another Laura that does the whole body and what she's dressing, which will combine with this Laura. So you've got a character you can use in any circumstance. Then, okay. Well, I'll come back when the next Laura is trained. Okay, so here we are with our Laura trained. For training Lauras, I've got a video. If you look at my videos, there's a video on training with Flux. I'll put the settings for the training. I use Flux Gym, but the settings should fit any trainer that I used. So that's it. That's it for training. I think you watch that video and put the settings in right, all will be well. So I put the Laura in. Here it is without either of the Loras without the photographic one or the cartoony one. So we get a nice comic strip style, as you would expect, yeah. So what we'll do, we'll pop in the photographic Mrs. Peel, and you see it's gone. It's lost the comic strip thing, so quite a lot, almost completely. So we take that one out and put the comic strippy one in. I hope this works. I won't try. So on some seeds it won't work, by the way. But most seeds it will. Hey, there we go. So we've got our lady, and everything is comic strip. We'll do another seed, just to show it wasn't luck. It will still produce a photographic one, but just because so much of the training images in models is photographic rather than drawn or illustrated. So there we go, same lady, very nice. And you see that the style from her to the background is nice and consistent. You might, of course, want to do oil painting or something. Actually, this sort of input is not too bad for oil paints as well. I'll quickly demonstrate that maybe. Pushing my luck here. So we'll add an oil painting Laura at quite a low level. We'll lower her, but you get the same thing with oil painting. You get, so we'll say an oil painting on canvas, and we'll take out this, no more painting, and see what we get. Because with the oil painting and watercolour, whatever, you get the same problem exactly. You get a watercolour background and rather a photographic face. There we go. That looks pretty consistent. Same style all over. We'll push our luck a bit further and make it even more painty and see if that spreads to the face. So this sort of Laura can be quite useful if you're doing illustrations rather than. If I was really keen on the doing oil paintings, I would make one in exactly the same way, but do oil painting. So if you wanted engraving or some other quite difficult medium like woodcut or something, then you would probably want to make a Laura specifically for that in this same way. Okay, it's a little bit more painted, so we've got some paint texture in the background there. But generally, she looks fine. We'll put the other Mrs. Peel in. This is a very strong oil painting Laura, so it might paintify her anyway. No, you see that the face has gone sort of, and we've lost some of the feel of it there. So this sort of Laura can be really useful in that way. I know what happens to her. I'm being silly now. Because the great thing with AI is that you can do. You don't have to stick to a single traditional media. You can mix them up together. So there's a mixture of oil paints and comics. There's a final image. Probably be horrible. There you go. Not bad. Actually, quite nice. Rather a nice image. There you go. But you see how the image is consistent throughout. There's no sort of islands of photography stuff. And her face is painted and so forth, rather than a sort of photographic face photoshopped in. Okay, that's it. I hope that was interesting and useful. I'm going to do another one in this series, which is the other big problem. The face is actually the least of the problem, which is getting a consistent set of clothes as well. So. If it's a superhero, consistent costume. If it's a historical figure, again, consistent costume. Or just an ordinary person, their clothes remain consistent. But and that's done a similar way, a slightly different way. So I decided I have to make a separate video for that, which I'll do in a few days. Okay, thanks for your attention.